What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. So obviously over the last few days, we've seen a few relatively, smaller trades. We saw Burakovsky for Veleno. We saw not Cody Glass, Eric Holla go to New Jersey. We saw Chris Kreider get traded to Anaheim, which I did make a video on, which is a relatively big trade. However, today's trade between Anaheim and Philadelphia, is easily the biggest of the offseason so far. Trevor Zegras just been traded to the Flyers in exchange for Ryan Poehling, the 45th overall pick in this year's draft, which belongs to Philadelphia, and a fourth-round pick, Philadelphia's fourth-round pick next season, 2026. So obviously a trade between two rebuilding teams that are in a complete different phase of their rebuild. I think Philadelphia is more trying to acquire just as much young talent as possible, and they're taking a chance here on Trevor Zegras, while Anaheim is more, it seems more that they're targeting specific players. Zegras, I don't think fits really the mold that Pat Verbeek is trying to build around. He seems to is more inclined to building around, bigger bodies, more grit. And Zegras just doesn't really fit the identity. He hasn't really performed super well over the last years. Obviously, he's had some injuries, but he hasn't been very trusted by their coach, Greg Cronin, who they did let go. But I think that for, obviously not the greatest value when you consider what they could have gotten potentially last season, where there was apparently a trade on the table between them and the Canadiens, where the Ducks would have received Logan Mailloux and the 21st overall pick in exchange for Zegras. However, what I understand, when the Canes were able to get Demidov at 5th overall, and then Michael Hage was available at 21st overall, that the Canadiens decided we're not going to build a team. We're not going to get another smaller skilled forward. We're better off just getting, Demidov and Hage and try to save these assets for a player that I think is going to fit, that's going to fit better with what Montreal's looking for. But for Anaheim, they're kind of in a similar position now, and not the greatest value. But Ryan Poehling's not that bad of a player either. He can, produce a little bit. This year, he had 31 points in 68 games, 12 goals. Last year, he had 28 points. So he's a good bottom six forward. That's a very fast player, 6'2". So I think for the Ducks, that could be a very useful bottom six player for them. And for Philadelphia, they're obviously hoping that Zegras can bounce back after only having 32 points in 57 games. This year, only 12 goals. Obviously, in Philadelphia, who seems to be in a rebuilding team, he's going to get more opportunity to produce. They don't have John Tortorella either as coach. So he could be a guy that could play, well, he's for sure going to be playing top 6 minutes. He could be a guy they decide to pair with Matvei Michkov. Obviously, won't be the greatest defensive line together. However, like I said, I think they're more focused on developing, their young guys instead of really winning games. So I think that is honestly a win-win for both teams. Philadelphia got a guy that, has some potential. He has 1 year. In fact, both Poehling and Zegras only have 1 more year left on their contract. Zegras is going to be an RFA next summer, while Poehling will be a UFA. But I think personally this trade, either way, is a pretty solid one. If I had to give grades for it, I would say personally Philadelphia, I'll give him a B+, maybe an A-. I really like this idea of a trade for the Flyers. Go get, bank on some potential and upside, and I think Zegras could maybe come back and be a 60, 70-point guy with the Flyers, especially if he plays with Michkov. And for Anaheim, I'll give them a C+, I would say. Obviously, you could have gotten more value if you had traded him last summer. Potentially, I would have maybe have kept him around another year to try to rebuild his value. But I can understand why they're getting rid of him now, considering if they obviously don't view him as part of the future, they might as well already focus on bringing in new guys that are going to replace Zegras. It seems that they're probably going to be super aggressive to try to get a guy like Mitch Marner this summer. And if you add Mitch Marner to your team, you don't really need a Zegras, considering those are 2 smaller guys. So we'll see. But I think for Anaheim, it's more of a, they're freeing up some cap space still in order, even though they have a ton of it, they're freeing up cap space in order to make a big move. That's how I interpret this move. So I'm going to give Philadelphia a A- and Anaheim a C+. Right, so that puts an end to this video. Let me know in the comments if you're a fan of the Anaheim Ducks or the Philadelphia Flyers. Let me know who won this trade. How do you expect Trevor Zegras to perform on a new team with a change of scenery? So let me know there. Even if you're a fan of another team as well, I'd like to see your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to check out the off-season content that's going to be coming out in the next couple weeks and months. And obviously, it's going to be pretty busy this week. There's going to be some trades. I'm going to be there just for you guys in order to break all this news and give my opinion on each move. So I'll see you again for another video. Ciao.